The signal no one was meant to answer. The Varelian homeworld had never known fire on this scale. From the observation spire of high orbital city Calith, Counselor Saris watched continents burn in silence. The planet below, once a mosaic of soft blues and pale greens, was scarred by incandescent lines where orbital strikes had kissed atmosphere and carved cities into glowing wounds. Even from this height, the heat signatures screamed across the sensors. The Carthax Dominion did not conquer. They erased. Their fleet hung in low orbit like a second, malignant sky, angular war forms of black alloy and crimson energy veins, moving with pitiless precision. Varelian defense platforms, elegant rings of crystal metal and shield harmonics, shattered one by one under sustained kinetic bombardment. The Dominion had studied them well. Too well. Saris folded her 4 slender hands behind her back, steadying herself as the spire trembled again. Somewhere below, another habitat dome had failed. Millions gone in the span of heartbeats. "We have exhausted all conventional options," intoned Archivist Threx, his voice quivering despite the neural dampeners embedded along his cranial crest. "All allies have either fallen or refused to answer." The High Council chamber was quiet, not with calm, but with resignation. The Varelians were not a species built for war. They had mastered art, energy harmonics, and interstellar diplomacy, but their biology favored grace over endurance. Their soldiers fought behind drones and distance. Against the Dominion's brutality, it was not enough. Saris turned slowly. "Then we are out of time." A hollow panel flickered to life at the center of the chamber, displaying a single icon, a triangular glyph surrounded by warning sigils so old their meanings had to be reconstructed from myth. The Beacon of Last Appeal. No one spoke its true name anymore. "That signal was sealed for a reason," protested Counselor Vale. "The records are unclear, fragmented. Even the ancients feared its activation." Threx's tendrils tightened. "Because it was never meant to be used lightly. The beacon does not summon allies. It summons survivors." Saris closed her eyes. Deathworlders, species that evolved on planets classified beyond standard tolerances, worlds of crushing gravity, violent tectonics, hyperpredators, and relentless environmental hostility. Most had burned themselves out before reaching the stars. A few had reached space and left scars across early galactic history. And one, according to half-forbidden archives, still existed. "Humans," Saris whispered. The name tasted strange. Heavy. The archival projections showed a bipedal species from a Class Omega world designated Sol 3. High gravity, unstable climate, endemic disease, apex predators on every continent, including themselves. The records noted their most disturbing trait not as aggression, but persistence. They endured. They were quarantined, Vale said softly. Isolated. Not because they were weak, but because they were too adaptable. Another tremor rocked the chamber. Emergency glyphs flared crimson along the walls. "Orbital City Calith will be breached within 40 cycles," an automated voice announced. "Evacuation probability, negligible." Saris opened her eyes. "We are already extinct," she said. "The only question left is whether the Dominion joins us in that fate." Silence stretched. Then, one by one, the counselors inclined their crests in assent. Threx moved to the ancient console, his digits hovering above controls that had not been touched in 10,000 cycles. Once activated, he warned, "The signal cannot be recalled." Saris met his gaze. "Then let history judge us." The archivist pressed the final glyph. The beacon awakened. Across subspace, something old stirred as the SOS pulse tore outward, raw, unencrypted, carrying only 3 data points: species identifier, coordinates, and a single status code reserved for civilizations at the edge of annihilation. Extinction imminent. The pulse vanished into the void. For several heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the long-range sensor screamed. "Multiple mass signatures detected," cried a sensor adept. "No, this can't be right. They're not emerging from known hyperspace lanes." Space itself seemed to tear. Dozens, no, hundreds, of rupture points bloomed into existence beyond the Dominion formation. The readings were impossible. Fleet mass estimates climbed past accepted military thresholds, then past theoretical limits entirely. The Carthex fleet reacted instantly, formations shifting, weapons charging, but too late. The newcomers arrived without ceremony. Vast, brutal silhouettes slid into real space, ships built like armored beasts rather than vessels of elegance. Hulls layered thick with ablative plating. Engine signatures burning hot enough to rival stars. Weapons arrays exposed, unapologetic, as if daring the universe to object. No transponder codes matched anything in the galactic registry. A single transmission cut through the chaos, translated automatically into Varelian speech. Signal received. Hostile presence confirmed. Nothing more. Saris felt something she had never known before. Not hope, not relief, but awe edged with terror. As the Deathworlder Fleet completed its arrival, blotting out the stars themselves, she understood the truth buried in the ancient warnings. The SOS had not summoned salvation. It had unleashed something the galaxy had spent millennia trying to forget, and now it was awake. When the hunters arrived, the Carthex Dominion prided itself on control. Their fleets were engineered to dominate every known theater of war: space, atmosphere, ground, and psyche. Each battle followed a precise doctrine: isolate command, overwhelm defenses, erase resistance, move on. Fear was a weapon sharpened through centuries of genocide. That doctrine shattered in the first 30 seconds after the Deathworlder Fleet arrived. Dominion's sensor matrices flooded with contradictions. Mass readings spiked and stabilized at impossible values. Energy signatures fluctuated wildly, then resolved into patterns no known civilization used. These ships did not optimize efficiency. They optimized survival. Identify the newcomers, ordered War Master Zarak, his chitinous frame rigid within the command cradle. Determine threat class and intent. The response was immediate and horrifying. They do not conform to any threat classification, replied the Tactical Intelligence Corps. Hull density exceeds capital-grade norms by 300%. Redundant systems detected, layered beyond acceptable design logic. Zarak's mandibles flexed. Inefficient. No, War Master, the Corps corrected. Deliberate. Before any further analysis could be completed, the Deathworlder Fleet moved. There was no declaration of war, no posturing, no attempt to negotiate territory or demand surrender. The fleet advanced as a single organism, formations tightening, vectors adjusting in flawless synchrony. Then space itself seemed to lurch. Kinetic lances fired. Not energy weapons, projectiles. Massive, relativistic slugs hurled across vacuum at obscene velocities. Dominion shields flared once, twice, then failed catastrophically as the impacts punched through them like paper. Capital ships ruptured from bow to stern, their internal pressure turning them into expanding clouds of debris. Counter-fire. Zarak roared. The Dominion responded with plasma barges and gravitic shear weapons, technologies that had crushed countless civilizations. They struck the Deathworlder vanguard head-on and achieved almost nothing. Armor peeled away, yes, but beneath it lay more armor. Hull breaches sealed themselves within seconds. Vessels continued advancing even while burning, shedding molten plating like wounded beasts that refused to fall. Then the second wave hit. Autonomous war constructs, thousands of them, poured from Deathworlder carriers. Not elegant drones, but angular, aggressive machines bristling with weapons. They moved unpredictably, swarming Dominion formations, targeting engines, weapon mounts, command nodes. Dominion ships began to die faster than they could be replaced. Within minutes, the once pristine battle order dissolved into chaos. On high-orbital city Calith, Saris watched the engagement unfold in stunned silence. Varelian defense algorithms struggled to keep up with the scale of destruction. "They're not assisting us," whispered a junior analyst. "They're erasing the Dominion." A Varelian communications array finally succeeded in opening a channel. "This is Counselor Saris of the Varelian Concord. she said, forcing calm into her voice. "We acknowledge your arrival," and the transmission cut in sharply. A human face appeared on the hollow. The being looked unremarkable at first. Pale skin, forward-facing eyes, short dark hair, threaded with gray. He wore no ceremonial markings, only a simple uniform bearing unfamiliar insignia. His expression was flat, focused. "You sent the extinction code," he said. His voice was steady, devoid of emotion. "That makes this a containment operation." Saris hesitated. We are grateful for your response. What do you require from us?" The human considered her for a fraction of a second. "Nothing," he replied. "Just stay out of our way." The channel closed. Saris exhaled shakily. Around her, the council chamber buzzed with fear and awe in equal measure. On the Dominion flagship, panic set in. "They are targeting command vessels first," shrieked an aide. Predictive models showed total fleet loss within. The aide vanished as the flagship's forward section disintegrated under a direct kinetic strike. Zirak was hurled against his restraints as alarm screamed. "Withdraw," he commanded. "Full retreat. Regroup at." Hyperspace drives failed across the fleet. The Deathworlders had anticipated the maneuver. Gravitational interdiction fields snapped into place, locking the Dominion in real space. Escape vectors vanished. The battlefield became a sealed, killing ground. War Master Zirak understood then, with crystalline clarity, what they faced. These were not conquerors. They were exterminators, but not indiscriminate ones. Their strikes were surgical, purposeful. Civilian structures were ignored. Only military assets burned. The precision was terrifying, not born of restraint, but of discipline honed by endless conflict. As the Dominion fleet collapsed, a final broadcast erupted across open channels. Human in origin, transmitted without encryption. "Attention hostile forces. This is a termination notice. You initiated an extinction event. We are the response." One by one, Dominion ships vanished from the tactical display, reduced to expanding debris fields. When the last hostile vessel detonated, silence fell over the system. The Deathworlder Fleet did not pursue fleeing escape pods. They did not celebrate. They simply reformed their lines and waited. Saris stared at the void where the Dominion Armada had been. In less than an hour, a war that had doomed her people was over. And for the first time since the beacon's activation, she wondered, quietly, fearfully, whether calling the Deathworlders had saved the galaxy, or merely reminded it why these beings had been quarantined in the first place. War is their natural environment. The Dominion did not surrender. Scattered elements of their invasion force plunged toward the Varelian homeworld, abandoning orbital dominance to entrench themselves among the cities they had already ruined. They believed, wrongly, that ground war would slow the Deathworlders. That terrain, civilians, and atmosphere would impose limit space combat did not. They had never fought humans. Human dropships fell from orbit like meteorites. Saris watched from a reinforced command bunker as streaks of fire tore across the sky. Varelian sensors screamed warnings. Thermal signatures far beyond safe atmospheric entry thresholds. But the human vessels did not break apart. They punched through cloud layers trailing plasma, retrothrusters igniting at the last possible moment before impact. The ground shook. Shockwaves rippled across the shattered cityscape as human craft slammed into plazas, rooftops, and streets already reduced to rubble. Rams deployed even as dust and debris still hung in the air. And then the Deathworlders emerged. They were encased in armor thicker than a Varelian civilian shelter, angular and scarred, painted in muted war colors that absorbed light rather than reflected it. Visors glowed faintly, hiding eyes adapted for predator focus. Each carried weapons that hummed with contained violence. Dominion infantry opened fire immediately. Energy bolts and shard projectiles hammered the humans as they advanced. They did not slow. Rounds sparked off armor, burned through outer layers, wounded flesh, and still the humans kept moving. Med systems injected stimulants and coagulants automatically. Wounded soldiers were dragged forward by their comrades or rose on their own, weapons never leaving their grips. Why won't they fall? Whispered a Varelian officer beside Saris. Because falling was not in their nature. Human units advanced with brutal coordination. Heavy gunners anchored positions, laying down suppressive fire while assault teams flanked through collapsing structures. Combat drones, small, vicious machines, swept ahead, marking targets and detonating among clustered Dominion troops. The Dominion soldiers fought hard. They always did. But their doctrine was built around overwhelming lesser species through terror and attrition. Humans did not break. They advanced into firestorms with methodical patience, clearing buildings room by room. Their communications were disturbingly calm. Contact left. 2 hostiles. Copy. Moving. Reloading. Push. No panic. No hesitation. Saris accessed battlefield telemetry, her crest tightening as casualty figures scrolled past. Human losses were mounting. They did not stop. A Dominion commander attempted a counteroffensive, deploying heavy walkers and atmospheric gunships. For a moment, the human advance slowed. Then the humans adapted. Portable anti-armor weapons appeared seemingly from nowhere. Missiles streaked upward, tearing gunships from the sky in spirals of fire. Walkers vanished beneath coordinated volleys that targeted joints, sensors, power cores. The humans learned faster than the Dominion could react. They treat combat like an ecosystem, Threx murmured beside her. They find equilibrium through destruction. As the battle raged, fragments of human speech filtered through open channels. Unintended transmissions that painted a terrifying picture. Jokes exchanged under fire. Casual swearing. Dark humor layered over lethal efficiency. War, to them, was not an aberration. It was familiar. One human unit breached a Dominion command hub buried beneath a fallen spire. Interior feeds showed close-quarters combat. Brutal, fast, intimate. Humans fought at arm's length without hesitation, using blades, rifle stocks, bare hands if necessary. When the hub fell, Dominion coordination across the continent collapsed. Resistance turned into rout. By the third rotation, organized Dominion presence on the planet was effectively annihilated. Pockets of resistance remained, but human forces bypassed them, severing supply lines and eliminating leadership. The Varelians emerged cautiously from shelters as the sounds of battle faded. Human soldiers were everywhere, tending to wounded civilians with surprising gentleness, distributing emergency supplies from their own reserves. Medics worked alongside Varelian healers without waiting for instruction. "They're helping us," a Varelian medic said in disbelief. Saris watched a human soldier remove his helmet, exhaustion etched into his features as blood, some of it his own, streaked his armor. He knelt to reassure a trembling Varelian child, his voice soft, almost awkward. The contrast was staggering. Later, as Dominion holdouts were hunted down with relentless precision, Saris finally understood. Humans were not creatures of war by choice. They were creatures forged by a world that had tried endlessly to kill them. War was simply another hostile environment, one they knew how to survive better than anyone else. As night fell over the battered planet, a human fleet-wide broadcast echoed across secure channels, its tone calm and absolute. Planetary threat neutralized, beginning sector-wide containment. Saris looked to the stars, where the Deathworlder Fleet still waited in silent formation. The Dominion had learned what it meant to face humanity in battle. The rest of the galaxy was about to learn what it meant to witness it. The price of survival. The war ended without ceremony. There was no victory broadcast, no triumphant declaration echoing across the stars. The Deathworlder Fleet simply stopped fighting because there was nothing left to fight. The Carthax Dominion's presence in the Varelian sector had been erased with clinical finality. In orbit, the wreckage of Dominion warships drifted in expanding halos of debris, already being cataloged and neutralized by human salvage drones. On the ground, human forces completed their sweeps with quiet efficiency, confirming kills, securing reactors, and dismantling weapons that could threaten the planet again. Saris stood on the balcony of the restored High Council spire, watching human vessels rise from the atmosphere one by one. The sky still bore scars of the invasion, burn marks, shattered towers, broken domes, but it was alive. For the first time since the SOS was sent, her people were no longer counting heartbeats to extinction. The humans did not linger. Their command carrier established a single diplomatic channel, brief and direct. No audience chamber, no grand gestures. Saris appeared on the hollow alone. The same human officer from before filled the projection. His uniform was unchanged, though faint scorch marks traced its edges. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes were alert, watchful in a way that suggested vigilance never truly left him. "Your system is secure," he said. "Dominion command infrastructure has been neutralized across 3 adjacent sectors. They won't be coming back." Saris inclined her crest deeply. "You have saved our civilization. We owe you a debt beyond measure." The human shook his head. "We don't collect debts." A pause followed, heavy, deliberate. "You activated a classified Extinction Beacon," he continued. "That device exists for one purpose only: to prevent the permanent loss of sapient life." Saris hesitated. "Then, we use it correctly?" "Yes," he replied. "But understand this. It is not a request for aid. It is a declaration that normal rules no longer apply." The weight of that statement settled over her. "What happens now?" she asked. The human officer gestured, and a series of projections appeared, maps of the sector, Dominion territories dimming under new markers. "We leave," he said, "but we will be watching. The Dominion has been discouraged elsewhere before. This time, we ensured the lesson would propagate." Saris absorbed the data, her mind racing. "You destroyed their fleets, their command nodes, their momentum. But you did not annihilate their civilization." The human's expression was grim. "Extinction is not justice. Deterrence is." Another pause. "If the Dominion rebuilds," Saris said carefully, "they'll remember," he replied. "Fear travels faster than fleets." The channel dimmed, then brightened again as the human officer delivered his final words. "One more thing," he said. "The beacon you used, seal it. Never activate it unless extinction is truly your only alternative." Saris met his gaze. "And if someone else does?" "Then we'll answer," he said simply. The transmission ended. Across the system, the Deathworlder Fleet began to depart. Hyperspace apertures opened like wounds in reality, swallowing warships by the dozen. Within minutes, the sky was empty once more. Silence returned. In the days that followed, the Varelians rebuilt. Slowly, carefully. Human aid arrived without fanfare. Medical supplies, reconstruction drones, climate stabilizers, then ceased just as abruptly. No permanent presence remained. Only stories. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session, panic rippling through species that had only observed the conflict from afar. Archived records were unlocked. Ancient treaties, quarantines, redacted warnings. The truth emerged at last. Humanity had not been isolated because it was dangerous in aggression. It had been isolated because it was unstoppable in defense. Earth Sol 3 was officially reclassified. Its designation was restored from buried archives. Class Omega Deathworld. Status: active. Response protocol: avoid extinction scenarios. Centuries later, Saris, now a historian, would record the final lesson of the war. We believe the SOS was a plea for rescue. In truth, it was a confession of failure, a declaration that we could no longer protect ourselves. She paused, then added one final line. The Deathworlders did not join the galaxy that day. They reminded it that survival has guardians, and that calling them comes at a terrible, necessary cost. Far beyond Varelian space, in the cold dark between stars, human fleets returned to silent patrol. They did not seek dominion. They waited, because somewhere, someday, another civilization would face extinction, and the galaxy would tremble once more when the Deathworlders answered.